Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Jose Weezer. We will be joined shortly by Councilmember Cedillo. And at this time, we'd take up item number 15, which is the Director's Report. Welcome, Mr. LeGrand.
Hi. Thank you, Chairman. Mike LeGrand for the record. Just a few things to report. After 300 interviews and over 500 applicants, we'll be making offers to about 40 different planners for the planning assistant exam coming up in the next month. So we're very happy to be moving forward with the resources that the City Council gave us last year in order to meet our almost 26% increase in case applications since last year. So we're very excited to start to go through the process to fill those vacancies, and want to thank the CAO and Personnel Department for their assistance in doing so. Last week at the Planning Commission, they approved the Master Plan Development Ordinance, or recommendation for the ordinance that will be coming before the Plum Committee in the following months. We're very excited to see this move forward. The Planning Commission had a very robust conversation, and we'll be looking forward to the same at the Plum Committee. On January 10th, the Plan Check Neighborhood Council held its monthly meeting at the Hollenbeck LAPD Community Room. We went through a number of ordinances and different items that the planning department's been working on. We did a presentation from our staff and co-studies to share with the various neighborhood councils who participate in that, and it went very well and was very well attended. On January 12th, the public hearing will be held for the Solar Fit program, the Master Conditional Use Permit. The state requires DWP to offer a FIT program and supply 33% renewable energy by 2020. We're doing a Master Conditional Use Permit to be consistent to allow those through a CUP process and allow them to expeditiously go through our entitlement process in the city. That concludes my report, and I'll be available for any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for that report. We'll receive and file item number 15. We'll next go to public comment. Dr. Tom Williams, and after Dr. Tom Williams is John Coluccio, and each speaker has 1 minute.
Hey, good afternoon. Dr. Tom Williams, previous LA 32 Neighborhood Council and technical advisor to Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community and some Sierra Club things. Basic element, planning. In 2012, we had a planning resolution that considered that there would be no construction of SR 710 North Extension in or under the city of Los Angeles. Right now, we're expecting an environmental impact report that will be coming up soon, hopefully, most likely 15th of March rather than the 15th of February because of the elections. And we're quite concerned that it still includes a large excavation next to Grifols Biomedical Facility. That particular area would be great for an expansion of Grifols, and it should be considered as land use. Thank you.
Thank you. John Coluccio.
Yes. Hello. Thank you. My name is John Coluccio. I will be before this committee in 2 weeks on a small lot subdivision case. I'm the appellant. That is case number 14-1746. I've come today to bring some attention to bear on the small lot subdivision issue in general. I think that when designed responsibly, these developments can enhance and improve neighborhoods all over the city and provide affordable housing. When designed hastily and irresponsibly, the small lot subdivision model can destroy the integrity of mostly older working-class neighborhoods, which we believe is the case in Hollywood over on Beechwood Drive. So what we're asking is that when this case comes up for appeal, that the committee read the appeal thoroughly and act accordingly.
Excuse me, you should not talk about a specific case if it's going to come up before the commission. Just talk generally about subdivisions.
I'm sorry, I was unaware of that. We believe small lot subdivisions can be done properly, and we certainly hope for responsible development in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will begin the agenda, and on item number 9, we checked first if we have any cards. No cards. We will continue that to January 27th. Item number 9, continue to January 27th. Item number 2, we will approve on consent. We have cards on item 2. Let's take up item number 2. Eric Previn.
Good morning, Commission.
Morning.
Good afternoon, I should say. It is Eric Previn, a Studio City resident. I know the property that is the North Hollywood Masonic Temple, 5122 Tahunga Avenue. And I've taken note of this application for cultural historical landmark status, if I have that correct. And I have to confess, I don't fully understand. I've looked into it. I'm very interested in architecture. This is kind of it's a former Freemason hall. It's fairly ordinary. It's a box, and the facade is the only part that apparently is tied to the architect who is quite famous for work he did in the 20s. This one is from 1951, and he was a very eclectic character. And so my question, as I'm new to this process, is who did this research? I don't want to use the term rubber stamp, but this does not feel like a truly extraordinary property to me, and I would ask you to take a look at that. I would also, as I did a little research, there are a number of properties, neighborhoods, and things that have been categorized a certain way that I don't...
Thank you. We have Ken Bernstein from our Office of Historic Resources in the back. You could also ask him, sir, questions after. And you don't have to give a full presentation. We got this. We just, we're going to have this on consent, but we saw this one card. We do have a speaker from, but sir, if you want to speak to him and ask him questions, Mr. Bernstein has other questions. We do have the local council members' representatives here. Anything you need to add to this? This was scheduled to be on consent, last-minute cards, but...
We're okay with this item being on consent.
Okay.
The report already highlights some of the historic aspects of it, including the front facade and the front 30 feet of the building. So we're okay with this item being on consent. This is a historic landmark in North Hollywood.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Huizar, can I interject for a moment?
Sure.
Because you don't have a quorum here and you're hearing the item, it can go with no recommendation. But if you do want to have a recommendation, you should hear it with a quorum.
We're going to do a report from the chair to the committee.
I just wanted to
the
clear
full
that
council.
up. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we got another card for number 2. Okay, all right. All righty, so we'll have that item go forward as a report from the committee chair to the full council. Item number 3, can you read that into the record, please?
Sure, Councilman. Item 3 is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission to include the Playa del Rey stone pillars as a historic cultural monument.
Eric Previn.
Right. It is Eric Previn again, and it's a similar question here. I'm not familiar with this property, but I did note one difference from the previous item, which is that the last item, the applicant, if I'm not mistaken, was our council member, Paul Krikorian. In this case, it was a different character, and I'm just trying to understand how this process works. And so this matter really is a different kind of thing because the historical significance of these pillars are quite teased out. The significance of the building that I mentioned earlier is not evident to me, and I don't know, where this goes or why we are doing this. I live in a 1946 Schindler house, which was designed by R.M. Schindler in the 40s, and this is the kind of place that, would surely be designated should I seek it. But why would one seek it, and why is the council member seeking designation for this old hall that does not particularly dazzle many of our residents? I mean, it's across from our YMCA. I'm not against the property, but that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Diner Harris from Council District 11. Here? Oh, there she is.
Good afternoon. The Councilman would like to support this application. These pillars are a reminder of the rich history of Playa del Rey and their surrounding community, their connection to Palisades del Rey, the now vanished Surf Ridge community, The Dickinson and Gillespie Corporation and the founding of the modern Playa del Rey neighborhood is undisputed and is extremely important to the cultural and historic fabric of the area. Playa del Rey often has an overlooked history, yet it's filled with exciting moments that helped make Los Angeles and the West Side what it is today. These include the channelization of Bayona Creek, countless oil fields, Howard Hughes and the Spruce Goose, the development of LAX, the dredging and construction of Marina del Rey, and a final destination on the Pacific Electric car. Your support for the nomination of these pillars will go a long way towards illuminating this community's fascinating history, and the councilman urges you to nominate these, move these pillars nomination towards council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will move this item as a report from the chair to the full council. Yes. Move. Item number 4, we will approve and move forward to the full council as a item as a report from chair. Item number 6. Item number 6, we will approve and keep it in committee for a report back in 30 days. And can you read that into the record, please, just so we
Sure.
know where.
Item 6, Councilman, is a motion by Councilman West and Mr. Price asking Building and Safety to report back on a process to install polycarbonate transparent window coverings for vacant properties in the following council districts: 1, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 14.
Thank you. So we'll move that item, approve it and keep it in committee for report back in 30 days. Items 7 and 8 we will take together, and we will approve both items. And if you could
Sure.
read those into the record, please.
Item 7 and 8, Councilman, are reports from the Planning Commission. Their proposed ordinances to amend the LA Sports and Entertainment Specific Plan to change the alcohol use approvals for on-site consumption from 30 to 35, and a modification to condition number 11. Item number 8 is an amendment to the actual development agreement ordinance, and they're interrelated.
Okay. So approve those and move them as a report from the chair, as a recommendation from chair to council. Item number 10, we will approve and move forward as a recommendation from the chair to the full council. Can you read that into the record, please?
What item was that, Councilman?
Number 10.
Sure. Item 10, Councilman, it's a zone change ordinance to the TQ multiple dwelling ordinance for 19 multiple family dwelling units in CD3.
Thank you. So we'll approve that item.
They're already approved. Councilman, for 7 and 8, City Attorney has prepared the final ordinances, so you may wish to read into the record to adopt those ordinances.
Yeah, we'll adopt those ordinances. Okay. Thank you very much. Item, yes.
Mr. Chair, what is before you in 7 and 8 are proposed ordinances, and the city attorney needs to prepare the final ordinances. 7 and 8, one is a specific plan amendment, and the other one is a proposed ordinance for the development agreement.
Okay, so those have not been prepared, so we'll
yes.
Request City Attorney prepare those ordinances, though.
Yes, and those 2 items should be continued until the city attorney prepares the final ordinance, and the clerk will send a formal letter to the city attorney. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that action. Thank you.
I thought they were ready.
Got that?
Yes.
And then we just approved item number 10.
Yes, Council.
On item number 14, if you could read that into the record, please.
Sure. Item 14 is a verbal status update, Councilman, on a development project in CD 15 for 352 residential units.
Okay. Ben Resnick.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Ben Resnick with Jeffrey Mangels, Butler, and Mitchell. Since this is just a status update report from the Planning Department, I guess I don't really have anything to say other than I'm here to listen to it. and just remind the chair that this is a situation where the city is contemplating a general plan amendment and a zone change that would effectually put the industrial properties adjoining out of business because it would make them legal non-conforming. It would make their uses not allowed. So we look forward to hearing the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And on this item, if we could ask the city clerk to prepare the hearing notices for February 10th, 2015. We'll take that action. All right. Again, prepare the hearing notices for February 10th. Okay, if we could go back to item number 1.
Yes, Councilman. Item 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Alma Ortiz to the Harbor Area Planning Commission.
Welcome. Is Ms. Ortiz here? Hi, can you walk up to the... Well, thank you. You're filling the vacancy created by Hector Serrano. And if you could just tell us your interest in serving on this commission and any other relevant information. Thank you.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. And my name is Alma Ortiz. And I am a lifelong resident of Wilmington, and I'm very excited to be a part of this commission. It is definitely a new position or a new assignment for me, but very excited to do so. I am a lifelong resident of Wilmington and currently a business owner in the city of Wilmington, and just opened a second location to my business in the city of San Pedro. And just wanting to make a difference in our community, and very excited and willing to learn as much as I can to make a difference in our community, and just excited to be able to be in such a commission like this to serve the city of Valley.
Great. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for your willingness to serve and your other work you've done in improving the health and social well-being of your community and support of small businesses. And we look forward to working with you. We'll move this item to council. I think it's heard in council when?
Tomorrow, sir.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Again, recommendation from chair to full council. That's the action. Item number 5. If we could have staff come up here, please, and give a brief overview of this item.
Yes, good afternoon. Ken Bernstein with the Planning Department, Office of Historic Resources. Item 5 is the Historic Cultural Monument application for the John L. Matheson Church of Latter-day Saints California Mission Residence at 2067 South Hobart Boulevard. This is a case that's coming before you without a recommendation from the full Cultural Heritage Commission. The commission ended up losing jurisdiction over the matter due to the time limit to act. However, the staff of the Office of Historic Resources did prepare a staff recommendation, which has been transmitted forward to the council, and that recommendation recommends designation as a historic cultural monument, that this meets 3 of the requisite criteria. First, that the building embodies the distinguishing characteristics of Tudor Revival style architecture with arts and crafts influences. Second, that the building is a notable work of a master architect associated with the architect Frederick Louis Rohrig. And then finally, that the building is significant in reflecting the broad cultural, economic, or social history of the community as the Los Angeles and California headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Mormon Church, a significant religious organization which occupied this building for a significant 25-year period when Mormon membership in California was experiencing dramatic growth. Again, because the Cultural Heritage Commission failed to act, a public hearing is required on this item, and with a committee of 1, if there is a lack of quorum, presumably that public hearing may need to happen in council if we have a committee of 2. So this would be the required public hearing on the matter, given the failure of the full Cultural Heritage Commission to act. And again, the Office of Historic Resources recommendation is for approval as a historic cultural monument.
Great. Thank you very much. So we'll go to public comment now. Laura Myers.
Thank you. My name is Laura Myers. My address is 1818 South Gramercy Place. I was asked by the city to prepare the materials that ended up constituting the report. The community brought this matter to the neighborhood council, to West Adams Heritage, and ultimately to the Council District 10 office, asking that the property be designated as a historic resource, a historic cultural monument. It was sort of a hidden gem because for many years no one had lived in it. But what we learned was that it was associated for 25 years with the Mormon Church, Church of Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ, and it was built by a very renowned architect. So for those reasons, we all supported it, and we've struggled with the loss of jurisdiction by the Cultural Heritage Commission. The owners are present. I don't know if they put in speaker cards, but many members of the community are present as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Dave Morrison and Freddie Levine on behalf of the owners. We don't object to the designation or the findings as stated. We do object to, in toto, incorporating the entire recommendation report because the information in that report is not correct, doesn't actually state the proper dimensions. First, we would recommend to go back to the Cultural Heritage Commission to have a proper report prepared. But we provided the council with information through Jeff Samudio, which would give the proper evaluation. So we just, as long as the report is only adopted as far as the findings and not the actual information about the property, we would not object to the designation. Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Samudio. I'm the consultant who came in on the 11th hour to assist with the owner and their understanding of what the opportunities are with preservation. And I believe that we have a meeting of the minds with regard to accepting the monument designation with the addendum that I've submitted here today, which gives a clarification of the gross square footage of the structure, which is underreported in the county assessor records by about 31%. So the total is not 7,000 square feet. It's more like 9,250 square feet. We would like to also add that there are two APN assessor parcel numbers that are involved in the for the monument designation. Only one is actually in the public record, although it is cited on the ZMIS records. It is not and should be included in the monument application. Along with a name change to John L. Matheson residence, which was part of the staff report from Cultural Heritage, we would be in support of the monument designation as submitted with my addendum.
Hi, my name is Jean Frost. I live at 2341 Scarf Street. I'm an over 30-year resident of South Los Angeles and very proud of the neighborhood. Today I'm representing the West Adams Heritage Association, and we have been in existence for about 30 years, supporting historic cultural monument designations and both cultural and architectural nominations and historic preservation overlay zones and National Register districts. I put most of my comments in writing, and I'd like to hand this to my honorable council members. And I simply urge that you support this. Preservation often makes for neighborhood pride and is the beginning of a restoration that can happen in an entire neighborhood, starting with one particular building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitzi Mogul. After Mitzi Mogul is Roland Souza.
Mitzi Mogul, 1725 Wellington Road. We're pleased, I'm certainly pleased as a historic preservation professional and a neighbor that the owner is now willing to support the monument application. Information can be added or corrected at any time during the life of a historic cultural monument. It need not be done prior to designation. Any time that new information becomes available or discovered, there is a process for that, and they're welcome to submit that to the Cultural Heritage Commission, which hears such things on a regular basis. And I would encourage them to avail themselves of that process if they feel that there is something else that needs correcting. the nomination more than meets the qualifications and therefore deserves and merits designation. I applaud Councilman Wesson's office for making the nomination, the motion to designate, and we would urge you to support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roland, Souza, and Elizabeth Caretz.
Yes, my name is Roland Souza, 1724 Westmoreland Boulevard. I represent Harvard Heights Association. This property is very important to our community. The owner's representative had asked for 30 days to prepare a written report and ended up getting 90 days, so there's really more than enough time to respond. They have claimed to support the nomination. We wish to adjust it, but there's nothing to adjust. The nomination is quite thorough, and the property more than meets the qualifications set forth in the ordinance. We thank you and ask for your support.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. Elizabeth Carlin on behalf of Council President Wesson. We're here today. The Council President is asking for your support for this historic cultural monument designation of the John L. Matheson Church of Latter-day Saints California Mission Residence. As has been stated before, this will maintain the character of the neighborhood in a Tudor revival style, and it was the first church of Latter-day Saints here in Los Angeles, and for that we ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Staff, there were some questions about the proper parcel number, et cetera. Has that been corrected? Anything that is could affect this application?
Councilman, again, Ken Bernstein from Planning Department staff. No, I think what we would suggest is that the communication from the representative of the property owner with the corrected information on square footage, the parcel size, the APN number, and so on, that is additional factual information that could go into the record, would be with the file on this item moving forward if it is designated as a historic cultural monument, so that would be referenced in the future. But none of that speaks to any of the findings necessary for approval or in any way changes the essence of the historic cultural monument application. So our suggestion would be to incorporate this into the record as a case file moving forward, and again, to recommend approval.
Okay, so seeing that, yes, Mr. Cedillo, turn on your microphone, please.
Statements were made that the record was not accurate in terms of the size and other factors like that. How do you cure that? You just do that at this point?
I think if we can check this, and if this is accurate, again, I think it would just be added to the case file with a note that this is the accurate information in terms of the size of the property. But again, none of that speaks to the actual significance or the findings that were made for designation. I think there is one issue. There was a suggestion about revising the proposed monument name, and that is something that the committee could choose to act upon. The suggestion coming from staff regarding the monument name was that it would be the John L. Matheson / Church of Latter-day Saints California Mission Residence, recognizing both the owner and the legacy of the Mormon Church related to the property.
Okay. So we'll move to approve this item and move it to full council. If you could ensure that some of those items are corrected or cured before it gets to council. Second by Mr. Cedillo. So ordered. Mr. City Attorney, we acted on a few items prior to Mr. Cedillo being here. Can we do a revote so that we do this as we take a vote or do?
Well, no, you wouldn't be able to do that because Mr. Cedillo wasn't here for those items. So you should just either send them on to City Council with the chair recommendation, or you could continue them and rehear them here.
We could redo them. That means we have to open up the hearing again and hear the public comment.
Yes.
And
so I think you should just probably leave them as they are.
Okay,
yes.
We'll do that. So as of this item number 5, we'll continue forward. And
Councilman, for item 5, I think we need to adopt the findings of the October 16th Planning Department report.
Okay.
As well as incorporate the name change.
Right, and the other suggestions.
Okay, we'll incorporate that into the record as well. So ordered. Items number 11, we could take that item up, please.
Item 11, Councilman, is an appeal by the Sunland Tahunga Alliance. It has to do with various land use entitlements, particularly a zone variance for the construction of single-family dwelling and reduced front yard setbacks in CD 7.
Nicholas Brown, Associate Zoning Administrator. The item before you is a 24,000 square foot, two-story home. It is in the Sunland Tahunga area and is in the Hillside. It has triggered having to comply with the Hillside Ordinance, and because of that, it is asking for several deviations from the ordinance. Now, those deviations include the height, which is a variance, but it also includes several other matters that are ZADs. That's for the setback, that's for the height, and that's for the street improvements. I'd like you to note that all that is before you today is just the square footage. That's the variance. All other matters have been heard by the Area Planning Commission and deliberated on, and they did sustain the zoning administrator, and the only matter that you have authority over today is just the size. I'd like to turn to the first page of some exhibits that I asked to be given to you, and we're going to talk a little bit about the process that has occurred with this project. If you have that, I can be assured I can start my presentation in that regard. What the timeline shows is back in 1992, we had the first Hillside Ordinance, and in that ordinance, the FAR was limited to 3-to-1. The setbacks were limited within that ordinance, as well as the height, as well as the streets. In 2007, there was an ICO for this area that actually had not a limitation in this case of the floor area, but actually had a minimum floor area that was guaranteed by the ICO, and that was 2,400 square feet. That, however, did expire prior to the application for this building permit. In 2011 is when the building permit was applied for, and that's May the 6th of 2011. Several days after, we had the that's the second Hillside Ordinance, which did limit the floor area ratio. In this case, as applied to this project, that limitation would be 1,147, and instead this project is 2,400. It also did modify the setbacks, the streets, and the grading, and did additional limitations on those. But I do want to note that because the application was submitted prior to the new ordinance, it is the old Hillside Ordinance that I acted on previously. That action was appealed to the Area Planning Commission, and on August the 16th, 2011, the Area Planning Commission sustained my decision. Then we moved to 2012, and what happened was, as the applicant attempted to comply with the conditions, they had trouble with the street improvements. It took the Bureau of Engineering as well as Planning Department some time to come to a decision of exactly what we wanted. And in that time period, they've lost the rights to their building permit and the rights to their prior discretionary action. So they had to reapply for this new discretionary action. I'd like you to turn to the second page of the submittal, and this is a comparison chart that shows the requirements of the old ordinance, Hillside Ordinance, and the new Hillside Ordinance. The portion in yellow, the FAR, is all that is under your review. Now, if this project was looked at under the old ordinance, the floor area could have been as much as 18,000 square feet. However, they applied for 2,400. That's what I approved. That's what was sustained by the Area Planning Commission. And then, again, because they could not get their building permits, they had to reapply under the new ordinance, and that new ordinance, as it says in this chart, limited the square footage to 1,147. Now, there are 4 factors that were the basis of my decision, and they are found on the third page of my submittal. Those factors being fundamental fairness, substantial issues that are raised in the current appeal were already adjudicated in prior discretionary actions, that the project does not, as I approved it and sustained by the Area Planning Commission does not disturb the expectations that were reached previously in the first action, and also that under this new review, there are no additional impacts, no additional grading, no visual impacts, no public safety issues that are any different than were already deliberated upon. I want to call your attention to the last page of my submittal, and that's just to give you a sense of what this project looks like, at least on paper. The bottom chart of this graph shows that this is a building that contours with the land, in the sense that as you see the bottom portion of the page, which is the facade that faces the public domain, the street, is the narrowest part of the building. Then it contours with the land, and that the larger part of the facade is away from the public domain. And in fact, on both sides of the properties, the likelihood of development is nil because of the degree of slope. The chart also shows what it's going to look like from the street, and that's the graph that is to the upper left. So at the street level, which is really this property's driveway, is just a one-story building. And then there is the second story down below, and that's what's shown on the right-hand side. What I'd like to conclude on is that there have been a number of issues raised in the appeal, and I'm going to actually take your guidance of what you want me to address. But I do believe there is one that must be corrected for the record, and this is the opposition's continued statement that the department has approved a number of other variances in this area for allowing oversized buildings. As of yesterday, I did another run in our system to see what the results were, and they're no different than I told them in the previous, is that no, the department has not approved any other variances in this area for oversized buildings. There are some that were for street, there are some for setbacks, but there were none for oversized building. And the importance of this is because there's a sense of the community that this is going to be the watershed case, and that this case is going to change everything. But if you can take a look at the findings, you'll see that there are enough special circumstances in this case, and the fact that we have no others, that we're going to follow the rule of stare decisis. We're going to take a look at the facts, and if in fact a case is very similar, which I doubt very seriously that can happen for any case in the future, we may consider an approval. But I doubt very seriously there'll be another case that fits the circumstances, as in this case, to allow the to allow the additional area for the floor area. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Drew Barrett, the appellant. Drew Barrett is the applicant rep.
No, I'm the appellant.
You're the appellant, yeah.
Right. Good afternoon, committee members, council members. My name's Joe Barrett, and I'm the director of the Sutherland Tujunga Alliance, which is a 501c4 nonprofit that deals with land use issues in the Sutherland Tujunga area, going all the way back to Home Depot, if you remember those days. We filed this appeal because we strongly believe this project is in violation of the baseline Hillside Ordinance. And the reason that we're here today is because Councilmember Fuentes and his planning director, Claudia Rodriguez, have been working for the last few months to try and facilitate a compromise between my organization and the applicant. And they worked very, very hard. I want to thank them. I want to thank everyone that was involved in that, including Dean Shearer, who's going to speak after me. But the applicant started the negotiations by refusing to deal with any of the core issues of the appeal, mainly the size of the house. And that's why we're here today. We're not here for cosmetic changes. We're here to see the structure of the house brought more into compliance with the baseline Hillside Ordinance. And with that, I'd like to introduce, can I introduce the next speaker from?
No, we sign up, they sign up for cards. We do not substitute time. So I'll call them if they filled out a card.
Okay. That's great. Dean Shearer. That's what we're looking for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we actually have the applicant rep next, and then we'll go to the rest of the cards. Oscar and Safi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the member of committee. This is Oscar and Safi, 6321 Van Nuys Boulevard, city of Van Nuys. You know, I was involved with this project from day one. and pretty much everything was supposed to be said is said. However, because of the topography, Mr. Board members, if this building would be constructed based on the 1,100 square foot, whatever that is allowed, it would look the same as what we are doing right now. However, we wouldn't have the bedrooms stepping down from the first floor. So the character of this structure, the size and the look, being a one-story look from the public way, it won't change. So the size, I don't think it has an issue with this thing because it won't change the mass of the building, which is not a massive building. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Akbar Mahdi.
Good afternoon. My name is Ali Akbar Mahdi, and I'm the owner of the property at Sister Elsie. For the sake of not repeating and saving the time, I'm going to cut the short and basically offer my comments, some of them to you. We bought this property in 2005 and applied for building permits and planning approval for our retirement house in June 2009. And it has been repeated, we applied for variances, we were approved, and we went through the hearings, and we got approval. They appealed, they lost the appeal, we got again approval. Based on that, I applied for all the city permits. I went through and paid all the fees. I got everything passed till we got to the stage where the engineering requested the 20 feet footage requirement in front, and that's where we lost the time, and we had to, given the city not being able to in time make the decision, we had to reapply. So shortly after the zoning administrator's second approval of our new request, I received a request from an individual in the neighborhood demanding inclusion of 2 houses located above property on the other side of the street in my insurance. She implied that my response to her demands would determine how the protesting neighbors would move forward. After confirming with 2 insurance companies that no company would issue us coverage, I assured this individual that our construction would be supervised by city inspectors and carried out by bonded and licensed contractors. Shortly after that, she carried out her threat by having the current appellant file the appeal that is before you today. In August 2014, at the request of and in presence of Ms. Rebecca Valdez, Chief of Staff of the Council Member Fentus Office, and Ms. Claudia Rodriguez, his Planning and Land Use Deputy, I and my council met with Mr. Barrett and the appellant and Mr. Scherer, the chair of the Sunland Tahanga Alliance Land Use Committee, and a few individuals from the neighborhood in order to resolve this matter. Subsequently, last month, my architect and I met with Mr. Scherer and Mr. Robert Dahl, an independent architect hired by the appellant, and Mrs. Rodriguez to respond to their request for changes in our design to satisfy the protesting individual. We accepted all the requested changes and implemented them in the design. We added river stone to the elevation, lined up the windows of both floors, added vertical elements to add curb appeal, extended the entry porch roof 6 inches beyond the adjacent roof over living room, and added 40-inch high painted metal guardrail over the retaining wall north of driveway for safety. I even agreed with their suggestions for the type and extent of landscaping on the site. Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Dahl, and Mr. Scherer have agreed that we had fully complied with their request. Mr. Dahl stated that given the shape and geological limitations of the land, we had done all that we could possibly do to satisfy complaining individuals, and requested Mr. Scherer to encourage them to approve of the house and withdraw their appeal. Unfortunately, Mr. Scherer has stated the protesting individual wished to make a statement to the city by this appeal, and were not interested in withdrawing. The appeal before you today focuses on the issue of the size of the proposed house. The appellant argues that the houses built in this neighborhood are small, quoting in their material 800 square foot as a standard. But this is simply not true. the square footage of 26 houses, which are all listed in front of you, are built on Sister Elsie, including the two
Thank you,
adjacent
sir.
to my property.
Your time is up.
I'll just have one paragraph.
No. Your time is up, sir. I'm sorry. We just have to be fair with
Okay.
everybody.
I'll submit.
Yeah. Thank you. You could, sir, if you could move your display board. Martin Lynn, Dean Scherer. Martin Lynn first. Again, just to explain the rules, the applicants and the property owners have 5 minutes each. Each public comment has 1 minute. So each of the
Good afternoon.
remaining people have 1 minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Martin Lin. I live on the 6353 Day Street. I'm a Jackson owner of Mr. Marty's property. Right now, the Sister Elsie, there's no seal on the road, so it's not very safe. If he build a house there, he will improve the shield, so it will bring the safety to the road. Well, I lived there for like 15 years, and I think that place needs some improvement, and he will bring in the improvement to the area, which is I support for that. So that's all. Thank you.
Dean Scherer, Electra Kruger.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dean Scherer. I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee for the Sunland Tonga Neighborhood Council, on behalf of whom I speak today. We are appreciative of the applicant's efforts in the past several months working with both myself and representatives of our councilperson's office to make design modifications to the dwelling. We also empathize with the hardships he suffered over the last several months in the pursuit of these appeals. We had hoped that more substantive changes would have made to the dwelling such that the appeal could be withdrawn. It is true that it's a better-looking dwelling now, having gone through those exercises, those negotiations, but still the underlying issues of the appeal remain, and I'll enumerate these shortly. Even with the design modifications agreed to by Mr. Mahdi, it does not conform to the requirements of the baseline Hillside Ordinance. If this project is approved, it will set a precedent for future development of homes on Sister Elsie. And finally, this project is a test of the city's will to implement its own hillside development regulations. We ask that you uphold the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Electra Kruger, Dr. Tom Williams.
My name is Electra Kruger. I live at 10544 Mahoney Drive in Sunland. The granting of a variance must be met by all 5 parameters, one of which being that, quote, such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right or use generally possessed by other properties in the same zone and vicinity, but which, because of special circumstances or practical or unnecessary hardship, would be denied to the property in question. The applicant is requesting a variance to grant the construction of a home twice the maximum residential floor area per the baseline Hillside Ordinance and substantially larger than any of the other homes in the neighborhood of Sister Elsie. The granting of the requested variance to permit that construction
Thank you.
At any rate, I would request that you consider the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tom Williams, Victor de la Cruz.
Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council Emeritus, but also we participated in about 10 meetings on the last Hillside Ordinance exercise. And I always told people it's called the V word, the variance. No matter what we did to it then, it's always open to variance. So here's a good example. I live on a hillside. I live on a ridgetop. I have 1,700 feet and 2 structures on 13,000 square foot lot. I have problems, but I say I deal with them. They were built in 1920 and 25. So we have a problem. These particular variances should not be allowed. Let them build in accordance with the ordinance that we spent so much time on and tried to get the best job we could at that time, 4 years ago. There's also a small matter that all of them on that hillside, are subject to the fire clearance ordinance, which none of them have and will be notified to the fire department through the brush clearance. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor De La Cruz, Alfred Nanajian.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Victor De La Cruz with Manat Phelps and Phillips. I represent Dr. Akbar Mahdi, who's the property owner, and you heard from him just now. You probably saw that he went through all the different demands that were requested by the community members and met every single one of them except the one with respect to the size. If this had been about size from the get-go, then they would not have appealed the first time that he was allowed to build a house, and the ordinance at that point in time allowed him to build an 18,000 square foot home, and they still appealed. They in all of their attachments, they talk about a precedent that's going to be set, and they attached all these materials from 35 to 40,000 square foot homes that were built in the Bel Air area. This is a completely different situation. It is a 2,400 square foot home that actually is completely consistent with everything else in the neighborhood. And so we ask you to put an end to this. It's been 5 years. Dr. Mahdi has complied with everything that they have asked for from an aesthetic standpoint, and the size here is completely commensurate with everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred Mananian.
Good afternoon.
Robert Avedian.
Alfred Mananian. I'm a local real estate agent. I did represent Dr. Mahdi at the time when he purchased this property at 2005, which he indeed checked with the City of Los Angeles at the Van Nuys Zoning Department and Building and Safety, and he was assured that it was buildable. And in 2009, when he started the project, you pretty much heard the process that he went through, and basically the nightmare began. And in my opinion, the situation warrants that the appeal will be denied, and I urge the council members to basically allow Dr. Mahdi to build his retirement home, simply because few residents that have approached overzealously to this matter. It's just a single family. It's not like Home Depot building a big project in there, and have dragged it on so long, caused so much hardship and suffering for Dr. Mahdi, and I'm here to support his request, and hopefully the appeal will be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Robert Avedian. Then Sherman Mr.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Abedian, 10160 Fernglen, number 3, Tahanga, 91042. I'm a local resident of Tahanga. I strongly supported the denial of this appeal, and I hope your committee corrects a wrong that has been done of this man and his family. Thank you.
Sharam Masakadni, and then Claudia Rodriguez from Council District 7. Sorry, it's your, the emphasis is on the E or the A? Sharam. Sharam or?
Sharam, yes.
Sharam.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Sharam Masarkani. I'm a local broker with Century 21 in the Salantanga area. I only have 60 seconds. There's so many things to say, but please, this application and application of such, I've been working in this community for 12, 13 years. They are throwing every stones that is possible for the people who are obeying the law, and the law allows them to build this house. This is what they want to leave. They're not doing anything else. They're following with the rules and regulations with the city. You council member, you know that how many times this has been appealed, and we are again here. I hope you will consider this and allow Dr. Hamid to continue and build his house. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Claudia Rodriguez.
Hello, council members. Claudia Rodriguez with the Office of Councilmember Fuentes. As you have heard at length, there's a lot of history with this project, going back a few years, even prior to the adoption of the Hillside Ordinance. And at that time, the community had expressed some concerns as well. With this appeal, the gist of it being the size, which is before you, the square footage of the home, we really worked with the land use chair of the Salantanga Neighborhood Council, representing a few of the neighbors that live on Sister Elsie, partly representing the Salantanga Alliance, and representing the Neighborhood Council to really work together and collaborate in some possible concessions. While those concessions did not come with a reduction in size, those concessions do come with a better project at the end of the day, visually with some enhancements to the outside of the building, and it's better than what the original project was, as there were modifications made. As part of the record, I would like to submit a revised Exhibit A so that Planning Department has the revised plans with the concessions already a part of that file, and also a list of concessions that were agreed upon, so that it could be as part of the file and the record, so that the community knows what those concessions were. I think it's really important, the unique circumstances surrounding this project, and it's important to note that we will work with the Planning Department to make sure that any future projects on Sister Elsie are flagged and do come to the council office, and that planning staff and all of us work together collaborating so that we can avoid being here in the future. With that said, our recommendation is to sustain the zoning administrator's action and submit the revised plans to incorporate the concessions as agreed upon by the applicant as Exhibit A of the approval.
Okay. Can we look at those concessions, or are they more aptly called conditions, or?
They're not conditions. It won't change the findings or the conditions of the case. It'll be just more architectural details that would be detailed as part of the plans of the project case file.
And so with respect to the actual size, which was at issue here, your office's request is to sustain the determination by the zoning administrator and denial of the appeal by the planning commission, by the area plan? Okay.
So.
Any questions or comments? We'll look at those. We could call the zoning administrator up, please. Have you had a chance to look at these suggestions? And these are, if they are called concessions, are they any part of the actual determination, or these are just? I mean, do they change the application? Have you reviewed?
Yes, I did have an opportunity to review what they're suggesting, and there is no requirement that they become conditions, but they should be shown on Exhibit A. And as was stated, that there's no need to modify the findings or include these as conditions, just make the new Exhibit A.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So we will, after listening to the testimony and determining that the only item before us is the size and the local council member's recommendation, we will sustain the zoning administrator's findings and the area commission's denial of the appeal and forward it to full council. Okay, thank you very much. Any objections? No objections? So ordered. Thank you. Next item.
Item 12, Councilman, is a city attorney prepare development agreement ordinance for a previously approved project in this committee. It's a 37-story office building in Century City, the Avenue of the Stars project.
All right, so we heard this item before and approved the project. We asked for the development agreement to come back to us. If we could have staff come up, please, and give a brief presentation on anything that is material issues that need to be raised, considering that we already approved this project and we just wanted to give some time to prepare the development agreement.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, honorable council members and committee members. My name is Nicholas Hendricks. I am the hearing officer for this case. We've been to hearings several times on this matter, and as you mentioned earlier, this has gone before the Plum Commission. The portion of the case today that is back before Plum is a reopening of the appeals that were already heard. The reason for that is because we prepared an errata to the final subsequent environmental impact report, and the errata contains information and clarifications to the language that's already in the record. They're just minor technical changes and clarifications to the conclusions that have already been considered by the Planning Commission. Therefore, the appeals that are included in the record, the planning staff still finds that adequate review has been implemented. There's been a vigorous and very robust analysis contained in the environmental impact report. The public record contains numerous amounts of information that clarifies and deals with the appeal issues. So I'm not going to go item by item on the appeal issues. We also agree with the applicant's response to the appellant's arguments that were submitted just very recently as last night. We do not agree with the appellant's statements, and we find that the errata was prepared in accordance with the CEQA statute. Furthermore, we would ask that the Plum Commission maintain the same position they took before and deny the appeals and sustain the original approval of the City Planning Commission. Now, the other part of this case is the development agreement. City Planning Commission, in a hearing that took place over 7 hours and additional hours and a continuance, considered a number of items to be included in the development agreement. The applicant and the city has come into agreement, and that's contained in the record. We feel that we're satisfied with the items that are in there because they contain funds for affordable housing, they contain funds for public improvements, and they also contain funds for planning and transportation studies in the future. So in saying that, and also includes provisions for diverse workforce as part of the construction contracts with the various unions and labor groups. So therefore, planning recommends that the committee deny the appeals and sustain the recommendations of the City Planning Commission. We further ask that the committee recommend that the City Council adopt the development agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll first go to appellant reps Neil Bauer and Ben Resnick.
Mr. Chair, I'll just speak for Mr. Brower as well, if you don't mind. We'll just consolidate our comments. This is Ben Resnick with Jeffrey Mangels, Butler, and Mitchell. We represent several property owners in Century City, as well as the Beverlywood Homes Association, which is 4,000 residents adjoining Century City. I don't take it lightly when I'm asking you to oppose the project. We've set our record. We've submitted documents. But in a nutshell, here's what's missing and what I still would like to see the city ask for. Under the specific plan, they can build 280,000 square foot office building. That's the way the plan's been interpreted for 30 years. They want to build 730,000 square feet. They get to that by doing a traffic study, I put that in quotes, that shows that the numbers of trips, et cetera, have changed over the years, and therefore they don't have to use what the specific plan has. That traffic study consists of 4 driveway counts at 4 buildings. 2 of those buildings the applicant owns. They did it in 2011, in the heart of the recession. And here's what's still missing. Every traffic study that's submitted to DOT and to the city has the backup, which is the actual raw data. How they did the counts, when they did the counts, where's the actual raw data. We have been asking for that now for a year. We asked for it at the Planning Commission. We asked for it in letters. They have yet to show us or anyone at the city the raw data to support their driveway counts that changed the entire size of this building to make it a 2.5 times the size of the building. So unless they have it, and I don't know about it, we've been looking for it. As of today, as I speak to you today here, it's not been disclosed, it's not in the record, it's nowhere to be found. We are to take their word that the conclusions of their traffic study, which is a traffic memo, of 4 driveway counts. By the way, 2 of these driveways were counted in one day. So is that sufficient? Is that enough to change an entire specific plan that's been in existence for almost 40 years? So at a minimum, we would like to be able to see the raw data that supports the so-called traffic study and counts that they did back in 2011. And so, and that's our comments. We've submitted, of course, other issues, and our concern and our client's concern basically is that the implications this will have on the future in Century City and how buildings are measured in terms of how much you can build and what you can do. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Barbara Brody. And after Barbara is Bennett Cohen.
Thank you, Chairman Huizar. I'm Barbara Brady, President of Westwood South of Santa Monica Boulevard Homeowners Association. We are 3,800 households that lie between Century City, the 10 freeway, and the 405 freeway. We have the distinction of having Santa Monica, Pico, and Olympic boulevards within our area. We are well aware of the impact that Century City has had on our communities, and we understand that it's one of the city centers that was identified many years ago in city planning documents. We, however, do believe that the Century City North Specific Plan is an important document that has governed development in this area for many years and has not been amended at this time and should not be reinterpreted to suit a particular development. We've submitted information about our support for Section 6 as it's been written, and we've also submitted a large number of articles, city planning commissioners asked us about them, that shows that the philosophy that's being presented by this project's developers is contrary to everything in current literature about space planning and real estate development, and that is that the old corner offices and the large offices with few employees per floor are a thing of the past, with office sharing instead and many more people occupying and therefore potentially generating traffic trips. So we would support Mr. Resnick's comments about the need to look further into the traffic analysis and the data that has been presented in support of this new method of computing traffic. We have an additional concern, and that is that in the development agreement, a very worthy amount of money has been set aside for our neighbors in Beverlywood. They deserve traffic mitigations and traffic calming measures, particularly because an earlier project approved by this council allowed a large sum of money to be used for the Cheviot Hills community, a 96-point traffic management plan for their community. That meant that their traffic went to our area and to Beverlywood. Beverlywood now has in this development agreement a $1.75 million pot of money to address some of those problems and to do some neighborhood calming to calm traffic through their community. We don't have anything. And that also means that not only will we have the traffic from this project, but we will also have the offset traffic from Beverlywood as less cars seek to cut through their neighborhood. We support them. We think they should have it, but we don't think we should be left out. So that's an unaddressed issue for us, and we think that that's something that needs to be addressed. There is a small comment, or there's a small provision in the development agreement on page 8 that also addresses the need for shuttles, which we have supported and advocated for a long time, having shuttles to take employees from Century City to the expo station and back. However, in this development agreement, it actually defines that that shuttle shall operate from the Westwood station, the Westwood Rancho Park station. That's a mistake. There are other stations in the area that may be more appropriate. If so, it should say the Palms and/or Rancho Park station. The Westwood Boulevard station will have to take the shuttles to UCLA and Westwood Village. To put and specifically tie in a shuttle to that station in the middle of a residential neighborhood where there is limited access and where there will be a large increase in the number of public buses serving the other areas is an error. There should be the allowance for the shuttles to go from the Palms and/or Westwood Rancho Park station, and let the transportation planners make those decisions based on Expo ridership, Century City bound traffic, and the bus patterns that establish after Expo open, because after all, Expo isn't open yet and we don't know how it will pan out. So I would ask for that change in the development agreement. I would ask for consideration for our community for traffic calming measures and a fund to address it. We know a community benefit fund was negotiated secretly in confidence between the developer and a number of homeowner groups, but it is our understanding that that had nothing to do with traffic mitigation whatsoever. And we would like to see something in the open, if possible. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Bennett Cohen. Now, you are the same appeal, correct?
Yeah, I just have a minute. Just 1 minute, that's all I need.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
I'm a resident and connected with Westwood South of Santa Monica Homeowners Association. And I continue my objection to the Century City Realties using Section 6 in connection with their project. And with reference to the Century City Realty's contribution of $1,750,000 in paragraph 5A of the amended development agreement, and that area does deserve those funds, I do request that the development agreement be amended to include a provision that the Century City Realty be required to contribute funds for a study and physical improvements of the traffic impact in the areas including Century City and Sepulveda Boulevard and between Santa Monica Boulevard and Pico Avenue as a result of the regional transportation planning and the construction and development of the transportation improvements in the South Robertson Boulevard and Beverly Wood community areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor Brady Roberts.
Good afternoon. My name is Pastor Brady Roberts, and I'm here in support of the Century City Center. I am the program director at Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, CLU LA. It is a rare day when we come before the Planning Commission in support of a project, but we feel that the Century City Center is the best of what development can offer to a city that chooses to take leadership steps around development. It will provide good union jobs in its construction and after its development. It will be an economic generator for our city where we know that sustainable employment is key to lifting all people out of poverty. It's going to provide funds for affordable housing. It's going to have state-of-the-art, brand new environmental design, which is good environmental stewardship for the earth that God has given us. It is a building that gives us the opportunity to lead in a city that should be leading the way for all of the United States when it comes to creative planning that sets a tone that says that people come first, good jobs, good development, and a good economy for a city that will thrive into the future. And we encourage you to continue to support this project.
Thank you. The applicant reps, George Bilston and DJ Moore.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. DJ Moore of Latham & Watkins, representing Century City Realty. We're pleased to be here before you again and appreciate your vote at the September hearing to approve the project and deny the appeals. I'll be brief. First, the applicant fully supports the development agreement ordinance and the city attorney's report and asks that you recommend it to the council for adoption. Second, as staff mentioned, in December, the planning department issued an errata to the project's EIR. The errata was prepared to make technical corrections and also address the volumes of additional comments supplied by Mr. Resnick in September. Mr. Resnick has also submitted additional materials within the last day, and we have further responses to those claims that have been submitted to you. The last-minute submissions by the opponents do not change the thorough analysis that's in the EIR and in the errata prepared by staff and the city's EIR consultants. The raw data that Mr. Resnick mentioned is in the record. The Department of Transportation has it, and both the Department of Transportation and the Planning Department approved the project's traffic study and confirmed its accuracy. At your September meeting, more than 25 project supporters from labor, environmental groups, and community groups asked you to approve Century City Center and to bring this LEED Platinum office tower to the site of the proposed Purple Line station in Century City. This is in addition to the hundreds of supporters who have attended many hearings and the several thousand supporters who've signed support cards and petitions, all in support of the project. The project and the development agreement were also fully endorsed by Councilman Caretz, who spoke to you in September. We ask again that you reject the appeals, approve the project, including the errata to the subsequent EIR, and recommend that the City Council adopt the development agreement ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Milston speaking? Nope. Okay. We have a number of support cards. We have, like I mentioned earlier, had previously approved this project. There's really not much difference from our position from before, as I understand it. So if you're supporting the project, we're inclined to move in that direction. You want to just come up and say you support it, or try not to be redundant in terms of what other people brought up for the interest of time, if you so wish, but it is your minute. So Mike Eveloff and then Ernesto Pantoja.
Hi there. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Eveloff. I live in the neighborhood directly adjacent to Century City. I'm on the board of Friends of West Los Angeles, and for many years I served as the president of the Tract 7260 Homeowners Association. I have been and continue to be involved in community projects and issues because the quality of life in our neighborhoods depends on the participation of people who actually live there. I have looked at the independent trip generation rates from other projects. I have carefully reviewed JMB's assumptions, data, methodology, and calculations, including independent data from the Twin Towers, which included occupancy data. Simply put, JMB's analysis is accurate. Trips for Class A office space in Century City buildings truly are generating less than they did before. That's what the Century City analysis shows. I ask you to approve the proposed project, and perhaps most importantly, approve the way that JMB and the community work together for the greater benefit of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernesto Pantoja. Okay, thank you. Lee Wallach. After Lee Wallach here? Okay. Peter Beal. Peter Beal. Francesca Beal. Francesca Beal. Lord Peckrell. Rabbi Jonathan Klein. After Rabbi Jonathan Klein is Ron Miller.
I'll be quick. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, Mr. Weezar. Rabbi Jonathan Klein, clergy and lay, United for Economic Justice, CLU LA. We support this project, as do our friends at the Sierra Club. We know this is a good project. I personally will add, as a resident in CD5, that I drive by that site every day when I take my daughter to school. And I can tell you right now that I really do not see this as anything close to what is being described as a traffic burden. It's not Dodger Stadium. We're not talking about game day. We're just talking about a new building. And I think all the hysteria around traffic is out of control. But I also think that this is a great opportunity for jobs in this city. And we at CLU, as well as our friends at Sierra Club, wholeheartedly support this environmentally sustainable building. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Miller, Delfino de la Cruz.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm Ron Miller, Executive Secretary of the LA Orange County Building Trades. And the good pastor said it all. I can't relate to any more. This is a good project, a good developer, and if all the developers in the city were like JMB, we would have, you wouldn't have a job probably. So let's take this out of the hands of the guys that get paid by the word
and let's put it in the hands of guys that get paid by the hour and break ground and get this thing going. Thank you.
Thank you. Delfino de la Cruz, and then Noel Molstein from CD5.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Delfino de la Cruz. I'm here on behalf of Sergio Rascon, Business Manager of Labor's Local 300. We are here also over 8,000 members, which reside in Los Angeles and in the following communities. We are asking the council deny the appeal and approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Noel Molstein.
Honorable committee members, my name is Noah Molstein. I'm the planning deputy for Councilmember Paul Caretz. I know it's been a long day, so I'll keep my remarks short and brief. Our office has been working with the project applicant and the many communities that surround the proposed site for quite a long time. Aside from being Los Angeles' first new LEED Platinum office tower, which will create thousands of good-paying jobs, it is also the location of the future Metro Purple Line. The project also enjoys the tremendous amount of support from many of the surrounding communities and will provide many benefits to the Century City and surrounding communities and the city as a whole. It is for those reasons and for many more reasons our office continues to support the proposal. We ask that you deny the appeal and approve the development agreement and recommend approval of this project. Thank you.
Okay, can we have staff come up briefly, please? An issue was brought up about providing simple raw data to the public, whether it is someone who is representing an appellant or not. I would imagine that that type of information, or should that type of information be readily available to any interested party.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
One of the public commenters, the representative for one of the appellants, mentioned they couldn't get information with respect to the raw data on the traffic impacts. And my view is, shouldn't that information be available to the public if they so ask for it, whether they are an appellant or not? That's public information that should be available, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So is that raw data available or not? Can we provide it to them?
The data that supports the traffic study and the trip generation study has always been in the record. It is not a true statement that the numbers are not available. The appendices of the draft EIR and all the other subsequent documents that have come out all contain the information that is necessary to understand how the data was manipulated and concluded.
How about the raw data?
The raw data? We have somebody here with the Department of Transportation. Perhaps I can have...
Sure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sean Hyrie with Department of Transportation. After the last Plum meeting, I actually asked my staff, I expected somebody will be asking for that raw data. I did ask my staff to have it ready in case there was a request. There was none. I never received a request for that raw data. As one of the opponents mentioned, the 4 buildings that were studied, 2 of them belong to the applicant. And when they came to us originally, they came with the data from the 2 buildings, and we asked them to come up with 2 other buildings that are similar in nature, but are not owned by them, to just make sure the numbers are consistent. And that was verified. But getting back to the information being available, they have always been available. I've never received, and my office is the custodian of the records, and I have never received one request from anyone. And if somebody wants it, I can provide it.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee recommends that the City Council deny all 5 appeals of the City Planning Commission's determination, and that we certify the Supplemental Environmental Impact Report, and that including the submitted errata, the corrections, technical corrections that were submitted, and that we adopt the findings as proposed, and that we adopt the findings of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee and the environmental findings and the findings of the environmental findings as well. And we're approving the alternative calculation of trip generation factor for the project. We're approving the modified project permit associated with Alternative 9. And we're adopting the conditions of approval as approved by the Los Angeles City Planning Commission on August 4th and as modified by the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. And we're approving the modifications requested by the Office Council District 5 to the draft First Amendment to Development Agreement by and between the City of Los Angeles and Century City Realty, LLC. And we further move that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee approve the August 4, 2014 recommendations of the Commission related to the First Amendment to Development Agreement and request the City Attorney prepare and deliver the City Clerk the Development Agreement Ordinance for the City Council's consideration. Was that made clear, sir? I summarized. If we
And the MMRP and the Statement of Overriding Considerations.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, there is also an ordinance for the development agreement, sir. So that is before the committee.
Yes, we are approving that as well.
Approving the ordinance, yes.
Yes. Okay, that would be the order. So no objections. Thank you so much. Next item. And I'm sorry, when is this in committee, in council? The item we just approved, is there a scheduled date for that?
January 27th, Tuesday, sir.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Next item, Councilman, is an appeal by the Larchmont Village Partners Group, LLC. They're objecting to the action of the Central APC, which objected to the change of use for a restaurant, Larchmont Bungalow, in Larchmont Village in CD4.
Thank you. Can we have staff and come up and present this item, please?
Good afternoon, Debbie Lawrence with City Planning. The subject of this appeal is the Bungalow, an eating establishment located at 107 North Larchmont Boulevard in the Larchmont Commercial District between Beverly Boulevard and First Street in the Wilshire Community Plan area. The building was originally constructed in 1922 as a restaurant. However, over the years, its use changed and it is currently permitted for food takeout retail use, and it's been in operation for over 5 years. The applicant applied for a zone change to remove a queue condition established in Ordinance number 168334, adopted in 1992, which limits the number of restaurants to 1 for every 270 feet of public street frontage, or 8 restaurants in total. In order for the bungalow to operate as a sit-down restaurant with beer and wine service for on-site consumption, the queue condition would have to be removed for this site only. Staff recommended and APC upheld denial of the zone change. These special zoning regulations were put in place to facilitate the retention of a wide range of neighborhood-oriented shops that would maintain a pedestrian-oriented neighborhood shopping district. In 1992, the Larchmont community supported the adoption of these queue conditions as necessary to protect the best interests of the neighborhood and assure diversity in the area businesses. This resulted in Ordinance number 168334, which expressly identifies permitted uses and limits the number of restaurants. Staff recommends denial of the appeal in its entirety. The appropriate process for removal of the queue condition is to address the current effectiveness of the ordinance through an amendment initiated by the City Council, City Planning Commission, or the Director of Planning, as outlined in Section 12.32, legislative actions of the LAMC. Through this public process, the ordinance as it applies to the entire area, rather than just this one individual property, can be examined. So staff could not make the findings that the applicant's request to remove the queue condition for this site only would be consistent with public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice. So once again, staff recommends denial of the appeal in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Newman, applicant and appellant.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Jerry Newman. I am representing the applicant in this matter. The Larchmont Bungalow was established 5 years ago as a restaurant, returning this building to its historic form. The building, when it was created in the early 1900s, was established as a restaurant initially. The my client, Mr. Mizrahi, came in, and rather than doing what he could have done under the current specific plan and tearing down the building and building a 3-story office building, he chose to preserve the building. The manner in which he then went about it is of some consequence. You will hear from some of the opponents about the things that Mr. Mizrahi did in trying to live within the context of this ordinance. The truth is the ordinance, as staff indicated at the Area Planning Commission, is something that is very difficult to administer and interpret and apply. You have multiple restaurants within the Larchmont area. You have the City Building and Safety Department issuing more certificates of occupancies for restaurants than would otherwise be permitted. Now, this restaurant being one of them is being subject to this to a request by the city to remove its use and to go back to a takeout condition. Mr. Mizrahi, in a desperate attempt to try to adhere to the terms of the queue condition, did things that probably were not the most intelligent. He put signs on his tables and chairs to create a retail establishment. He decided not to be a normal restaurant, and rather than having table service and having waiters and waitresses that would come up, he instead chose to have a takeout counter and then provide seating for people who wanted to eat within the establishment, thinking that this would go to the essence of what the ordinance says. The ordinance itself is very interesting. What it says is that the ordinance defines restaurant as an establishment operated primarily for the purpose of selling food to be consumed on premises, which may have a secondary purpose of selling alcohol beverages, but excludes food service establishments which operate primarily for the purpose of selling food to be consumed off premises, such as retail bakeries, ice cream parlors, yogurt shops, candy shops, donut shops, grocery stores, delicatessens, catering services, or coffee stores. More than half of the clients that come to this bakery come there to take food out. We have done an exhaustive research of the number of customers that are coming, and more than half of them are actually takeout customers. The reality is what is primarily? Does that mean that because more than half the people are takeout customers, that the primary purpose of this establishment is a bakery or a coffee shop or a takeout facility? Or is that to be assessed by virtue of how much money is derived from either activity? The ordinance does not specify. Instead, the ordinance offers up a variety of things that one can review in terms of exclusions. Except that today, the City Planning Department goes by certificates of occupancy. Now, I will tell you, planning staff has done a yeoman's job in trying to work with this ordinance and in trying to understand this case and apply it fairly. In the end, they decided that it would be best to review the ordinance in its entirety as opposed to doing a case-by-case application of what could be the right thing to do. What we say, though, is you have a business that has been operating for 5 years. You have an establishment which employs people at a living wage of over nearly 50 people. And if you make the determination to shut it down and not grant what the request is, you, in effect, are putting this establishment out of business. Because why maintain a building of this size merely as a takeout? To eliminate what the opponents say is just get rid of the tables and chairs. If one gets rid of the tables and chairs, then more than half of the business, or less than half of the business, but more than half the revenue goes out the door, and you can no longer maintain the establishment. Nor can you at least maintain the 50 jobs that are applied to it. The reality is this ordinance is very difficult to apply and to interpret. We believe that it is unfair, quite frankly, to say that the only mechanism by which you apply the ordinance is to determine it by certificates of occupancy. There's nowhere in the code does it say that that is the methodology used to apply the standards of this ordinance. Therefore, if you look at the current condition of the street, you have restaurant uses applied to places that have no tables and chairs in them. So they are taking up a spot, for instance, one of the bakeries has no tables and chairs, and yet it is applied as a restaurant, but exempt from this, the ordinance as a bakery. It doesn't need to have tables. It doesn't need to be a restaurant. But instead, staff says, the certificate of occupancy controls. Okay. We don't even know that if you were to apply the ordinance and count up what is truly restaurants, that you would get to the number that is assigned. And staff can't even tell us what is the exact number.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Sam Perlmutter, and then Walter Karabian.
Thank you. It's Sam Perlmutter. I'm a resident of the Larchmont area for the last 40 years and am an attorney. I've been practicing for over 45 years. The shocking thing to me, and I'm in favor of the appeal, is that both the councilman's office and the city planning has admitted that their enforcement is not consistent, that they enforce some and don't enforce the others, when in truth, in fact, the only enforcement is the applicant, the Larchmont, while there's 11 other spaces, restaurants, that have takeout but have tables and chairs, and there's no enforcement. Now, the opposition, Councilman, yes, the opposition will come up and say, okay, can I have my time? The opposition will come up and say they represent the neighborhood. They do not represent the neighborhood. On the other hand, the applicants have 3,000 people who have signed and want this place to be. Now, I'd like to introduce Wally Karabian, who was the former majority speaker of the House, and as a resident who will talk about the economic impact. We're like a tandem.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I was wondering if it was the Wally Karabian that I thought it was. It is.
It's the real Walter Karabian.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if you uphold the Public Works position, you will immediately fire 48 gainfully employed employees, a tragedy in the city of Los Angeles at this time, and you will cut your budget $350,000. It seems to me that when we went to the city attorney's office and the Board of Public Works staff, they viewed us as if we were speaking a foreign language. No one cared about the jobs that would be lost, and no one cared about the income that would be lost to the city of Los Angeles. I'm a homeowner in the area. I'm not representing anybody other than myself, but I know economics have a place to play, have a page in this story. And I'm hoping you will look at the economics, because what difference does it make if you have a few tables and chairs? What difference does it make? You don't want to cut those employees and the income. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Tom Knifsey. John Wellborn, after Mr. Knifsey.
Yeah, Tom Knifsey. I'm the president of the Homeowners, Property Owners Association and the Business Improvement District. I was involved initially with the Q condition, and the understanding at that time was, and I'm the one who insisted that the wording in here say not to include bakeries. We went up and down the street and wanted to make sure that the takeouts were not going to be classified as restaurants. Well, since that time, the last 20 years, this thing has gotten so confusing. We've fought it twice when it was trying to be changed. Everybody understands that it's so confusing it can't be enforced. I mean, this is a good example just today. This ordinance, which these are notes that were given to me by John Wellborn, showed how the agreement was that we would allow 10 restaurants. And the restaurants were based on a formula. I wanted 10 restaurants in there, but he said, no, the city wants a formula. So the formula was one restaurant for every 270 feet. The street was measured all the way around the corner, and we came up with 2,700 square feet. That's 10 restaurants. Now the city is saying, no, it's just the frontage, and it's only 2,200 square feet, so you can only have 8 restaurants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'll give you a copy of John Wellborn's notes.
John Wellborn's not here? Oh, John Wellborn. After John Wellborn, John Kelly.
Chairman Weezer and
Mr. Cedillo. I'm John Wellborn. I'm a resident of the area around Larchmont for 60-plus years, including since the 1960s when this space was always the Dipple Realty Company, followed by retail. Maybe 90 years ago, it might have been briefly a restaurant. I'm also the vice president of the Windsor Square Association, which is the association representing about 1,100 homes surrounding the area. I'm here simply today to support the councilman of the district, the city attorney of Los Angeles, the unanimous Central Area Planning Commission, the planning department staff. And this is simply a case of a property owner who doesn't want to follow the zoning of his property. He was told in advance of opening in 2009 what it was, that he couldn't have a restaurant, he couldn't have tables and chairs. As soon as he opened, he had them. He was cited immediately by the city, and this is part of a 5-year program of delay and delay and delay. So I just urge you to deny the appeal the way everybody else has. Thank you.
Thank you. John Kelly and John Kaliski.
Kaliski had to go.
Commissioners, I'm John Kelly. I'm a senior investigator for Department of Building and Safety. I've worked on this case for over 5 years. The ordinance may be vague, but the permit is crystal clear. It says no seating, and that's what the certificate of occupancy said. And before the ink was dry, there were tables and chairs. So that C of O was revoked. The Department of Building and Safety opposes this appeal, and we urge you to adopt the findings of the Central Area Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, sir. And the reasoning for opposing it is what? Just simply because the ordinance? I'm sorry. What was the reasoning for the Building and Safety Department not supporting the appeal?
The permit was issued with a maintenance affidavit to have no tables and chairs, and that was because there was a flexible layout on the plan, and in the interpretive manual, that's what the plan checker is supposed to do. He's supposed to get the owner to commit to a certain course of action. When we issued the certificate of occupancy, it was with the notion that there would be no seating in that establishment.
Thank you. Sasha Urbeles or Urbels, Eduardo Gomez.
Good afternoon. My name is Sasha, and I work at Larchmont Bungalow. I've been employed for over 4 years now. I love my job. I love my staff. We've actually been together for over 7 years as we stick together. We worked at a previous location and we came here. And we love what we do and we do it well. And we would hate to see that go. The staff is dependent on this income. I handle payroll and gratuities. And our staff averages $18 to $20 an hour. And that's just simply something that you cannot find in Los Angeles for what we do. We can't imagine it going. We are great at it. The community loves us. Every morning you find the LAPD come in groups to join us for their coffee and their pastries, and all we want to do is feed people. We're not trying to hurt anybody. I think we bring joy and pleasure to the community in creating a nurturing environment, and we want to keep it up, and we want it to work out. Thanks.
Thank you. Eduardo Gomez. Russ Matusarek.
Gomez, 510 East 23rd Street. I've been working at Larchmont Bungalow for 5 years now. I started as a dishwasher, got promoted a food runner, expo, prep cook, and now I'm a shift leader and a coffee bean roaster. I get paid $20 an hour, which is pretty hard. From where I grew up, you don't get that kind of opportunity anywhere, so I'm very grateful for that because both my parents are not able to work, so they depend on me financially. And I hope you guys don't shut this place down.
Thank you. That's a pretty dope T-shirt, by the way. Rose Matusarek.
Good afternoon. It's Russ Matusevich. I own and operate Sam's Bagels on Larchmont Boulevard for the last 20-plus years. I just want to say that closing the bungalow will be a mistake. I'm not looking from city ordinance point of view or anything like that, just looking from Larchmont point of view. The customers love the place. Everyone loves it. It's rare to hear any sort of complaint. I'm there every day, and parking and all of that it's not really an issue. It's nothing different than Larchmont's always been. Just to say that there's been nearly 3,000 signatures, I'd like to put on the record, that state from customers that live in the area that also say this exact same thing as we do, is that it's a good place, and I hope you guys don't change it, because it will be bad for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron, past 4-ish. Celia Lee.
Hi, I'm a photographer who lives on Larchmont. I have my studios is like about a block away from the bungalow, and I use the bungalow on a daily basis for meetings and to get coffee and to hang out, and it's probably one of the best places for me to go, and just business meetings in general on Larchmont, because it's a nice open space if you've ever been there, and I would really hate to see it go, so I'm in support of the bungalow. Thank you.
Thank you. Celia Lee. Stevie Wright.
Good afternoon. I'm a resident that lives nearby the street, and I enjoy coming to the establishment with my friends and family. The food, coffee, and pastries are amazing and never disappoints when I'm showing new people around Los Angeles, because I'm originally from Virginia, and so they come to visit me, and first thing is always Larchmont Bungalow. It has brought me good company with others and also motivated me to come to the place to come and study with others that's available because of the Wi-Fi, and also creates a different environment other than just regular coffee shops. I feel like the bungalow has given the street lots of light, and over time I've come to know the people that work over there, and they give good relationships and stuff like that. I want the bungalow to stay because it also is one of the first places that my uncle has taken me when I moved out here, Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Stevie Wright.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Stevie Wright, and I'm here to support the bungalow. I live close by the neighborhood and have been coming to Larchmont Street for quite a while. I found that the bungalow is really the heart of this community. It's the best restaurant on the street. It's very family-oriented. The food, the coffee, the ambiance have quickly made it a neighborhood favorite. I'm there almost 5 times a week, and I see people doing their work, having business meetings, and spending time with their families. The bungalow also affects the other surrounding businesses, because most of the time customers will have breakfast or lunch and then shop around. So if it were to close, it would have an impact on the entire street and the many jobs that rely on it. We ask that you please keep the Larchmont Bungalow open. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I can't make out the writing. Someone who works for representing GWNC plus Fremont Place.
Oh, that's me.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Not a very good handwriter. My name is Patricia Lombard. I live at 78 Fremont Place. I'm a member of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council, and I'm also president of the Fremont Place Association. I'm here to urge you to deny this appeal and to uphold the Area Planning Commission's decision. Since 2009, over 5 years ago, this restaurant has been operating illegally, violating the queue conditions that have been in place since the early 90s that limit the number of foods and restaurants, banks, and real estate offices to preserve the local serving retail on the street, which is really important to the people who live in the neighborhood. This applicant has instead, he admits in his appeal that he has over 50% or 50% of his business is takeout. We're not urging the closure of this business by any stretch. We're only urging the compliance with the queue conditions. Instead, this applicant has sued the city and lost, pled guilty to fire code violations, and is scheduled to appear in court on March 17th. I would urge you to deny this appeal and support the city departments, which have expended a great deal of resources to help the neighborhood enforce the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Albert Mizrahi. The owner of the place, right?
Yes, I am.
I am sorry, sir. You have 1 minute. Your representative already has taken the allowed 5 minutes. So,
I opened up the Larchmont Bungalow 5 years ago. And yes, I did make some mistakes. about how to.
Can you pick up the microphone, please? Yeah, thank you.
I made mistakes regarding some of the tactics, you know what I mean, of trying to build the restaurant inside this old building. But what I've never torn down the building, and I saw the building, and I wanted to preserve the building. What I've built through my life, I built quite a few businesses, about a half a dozen different businesses. This particular business, I can never duplicate. It's probably the best business I've ever built, and I built some pretty good things. The people, the culture, the community. All I want to do. I love Larchmont Village, and I love the community. I love the people, and I wouldn't know what to do if the sales came down. I would have to. How would I pay for these salaries?
Thank you. Your time is up, sir. Thank you very much. Great, thank you. Last, Renee Weitzer from the local council office. Councilmember Tom LaBonge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Councilman Cedillo. Renee Weitzer representing Councilman Tom LaBonge. As you have heard this afternoon, this application is for a zone change, for a change of use from a takeout retail to a restaurant. As you have also heard this afternoon, there is a queue condition on Larchmont, which is an ordinance which restricts the number of restaurants allowed on Larchmont. This ordinance has been in effect for 23 years. 23 years. This is a vibrant street. It's been that way for many, many years. The bungalow came to Larchmont because it is a vibrant street, not because it made it a vibrant street. When the bungalow first came to Larchmont, I personally gave the owner a copy of the ordinance, and many times over and over again, I indicated that a restaurant was not allowed, that his restaurant would be one too many that was allowed on Larchmont. Even though the applicant clearly was and is aware of this restriction, the applicant continues to operate the site as a restaurant illegally. No one is saying he should close the bungalow. He should just comply with the law, remove his chairs and tables. He doesn't have to let go of his people. All these stories that you hear today, many of you have ordinances in your districts. We have laws that people go by. They apply for it. This person refuses to abide by the law. Has nothing to do with what his business is. We urge you in the very strongest way, Councilman LaBonge urges you, to deny this appeal and support the staff as well as the Central Area Planning Commission to deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have staff come back up, please? Now, you mentioned that should they want to effectuate this change or go from a takeout to a sit-down restaurant, there's another procedure that would be more appropriate. What procedure would that be again?
So what staff's position on this is the ordinance defines what a restaurant is. It defines the ratio, which is the total of the public street frontage on both sides of Larchmont between First and Beverly, divides it by 270 and comes up with the number of accepted restaurants. All we are saying is that if there is if the time is good to change this, that it should be addressed for the whole area and not just effectuated by this one particular business. So the ordinance applies to all of the businesses along that area, and the ordinance itself should be addressed through the public process, which would be a legislative action initiated by either City Council, the Planning Commission, or the Director of Planning. So it would not just look at this one particular property, it would look at
Okay.
the whole area.
And so the whole, I'm trying to understand this, the whole area has this ordinance, and each one has a queue condition
Yes.
through the ordinance. And so what this applicant's trying to do is lift that queue condition for this one property. And what is the certificate of occupancy? How does this fit into this?
So and this is Debbie Lawrence from Planning. I forgot to mention that. The certificate of occupancy is what states what type of use is allowed for the business. And what there is there's restaurant, but there's also takeout/retail. So if you look at the individual certificates of occupancy for all of the businesses along this area, they either show restaurant or some sort of retail or office, but they do not indicate whether they don't talk about tables and chairs and that sort of thing. So the ordinance only speaks to what a restaurant is. It defines the use as what a restaurant is, and then the certificate of occupancy identifies whether it's permitted for a restaurant or for takeout/retail.
And so that's when building and safety comes in. Now, are
Yes.
there other establishments in this area that's controlled by the ordinance that are out of compliance?
Yes, there are. But the key here is that there are several certificates of occupancy for restaurants, for establishments that had them before the queue conditions went in place. But as far as being out of compliance, that's a building and safety. That's building and safety. They're the ones who go out and check for the tables and chairs. That's not part of this ordinance. All we can do is look at whether or not a business has a certificate of occupancy for restaurant and apply that with our ratio in the ordinance.
And how many, I mean, when you said there was others before the ordinance, have there been more that got a certificate of occupancy after the ordinance and have still been permitted? I mean, I assume they've been cited, correct? Or
well, I can't respond directly to that. I have a survey that was done by the inspectors of building and safety that show the ones that do have legal certificates of occupancy for restaurant and those that do not. So the number there is a varying number of that, but once again, it depends on the certificate of occupancy, and we're not involved with the legality. We're not involved with the legality or the enforcement of it.
yeah, okay. So and that's building and safety. They
Yes.
take care of the CFOs once we set the ordinance and the queue conditions and go from there. And so, if there's how did this one particular issue, did they apply because they were cited, or was it just, have they been cited before, like others have been cited?
Well, that's building and safety again. What we did is we received a case for a zone change because that's the only relief that you can seek to remove a queue, because the queue is part of the zone. So I received a case for a zone change to remove the queue for this particular property.
Yeah. And have others done this in the area for the ordinance, gotten relief from the queue conditions?
Not for restaurant. There was a case that had something that was different called the flywheel, which had to do with a use for spinning, but that was a different issue. That did not have to do with this restaurant condition in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Building and safety, can you come up, please? And do you have any questions for the planning staff, Mr. Cedillo, before we switch?
Two things I heard.
Is this for me, for
Yes.
planning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, things I heard. One was related to the calculations of the number of frontage, and then on the sides that was calculated. There's a larger number that then allowed a larger number of restaurants, and then there's a smaller number, and so it's unclear where the footage is designated from. So that was one thing, and how do you reconcile that? The
Debbie
second thing
Lawrence,
I heard-
Planning. I'll respond to that. The ordinance. Oh, I'm sorry.
The second had to do with some takeouts, I guess bakeries, donut shops, cupcake shops, whatever, who are designated as restaurants but are not utilizing dining within the facility, that they're strictly takeout, but yet nevertheless hold a designation as a restaurant.
So responding to the first point, the ordinance says public street frontage, and the intent was to include the frontage that fronts the street where the restaurant would be entered. The second part of that Q condition states that no one single restaurant should exceed 40 linear feet of street frontage. So by adding the sides, that would actually make all 4 buildings on the corners illegal with that Q condition, because that would be, if you add the 4 corners that that he was referring to, you would end up with a greater total. It would be more than 2,100 square linear feet, which would take the total number of restaurants to 10 instead of 8. But by doing that, that would make the sides not in compliance with the Q, that public street frontage must not exceed 40 feet for an individual property.
Shauna Bonson, Senior City Planner. I'm just going to interject real quick with a visual because I think it's really helpful. And for the audience, this is simply a map of the ordinance. So what you heard earlier was a proposal to include the corner edges that are on Beverly and on First Street as part of the street frontage. Since the inception of the Qs, that's not how we have interpreted or calculated the frontage. We are looking at it just in terms of Beverly itself. Or, excuse me, Larchmont itself.
Cupcakes?
I'm sorry?
Second point on the cupcakes.
Oh, the second one, that one has to do with building and safety, so I'd rather let them respond to that question. And you may have to restate it, so can I ask John Kelly to...
Yeah, the question was...
I heard someone say that there were some bakeries that were designated as restaurants, but yet were not operating as restaurants.
There are some establishments. One is a juice, Jamba Juice, and that were cheating. And I told Mr. Newman that all you had to do was to make a complaint, and they'll be cited. But that's the process with building and safety. And
that's not really responsive to my question, though.
Okay. Somebody did complain about them, and they were cited. 3 of them. A 4th one was cheating. It was a crepe place called Baciami, and Mizrahi's lawyer, his criminal lawyer, Mr. Fenster, complained to me about it, and they were cited, and he went out of business. The 3 other ones were cited in late November, and of course they have a certain amount of time in which to bring it into compliance, and then the Code Enforcement Bureau will engage them in enforcement.
So there
were 4 establishments that were cheating.
The 3 that are left, the 3 are takeout situations that were operating as restaurants and now have to come into compliance?
They had seating inside, and there's not supposed to be seating.
Got it.
The product is supposed to be consumed off premises.
And are they designated as restaurants or not?
They were designated. One is a juice bar, and I think 2 were bakeries or something like that. But all 3 have now been cited. They were cited in November.
For our purposes, for the city's purposes, do they have a designation as a restaurant?
No.
Okay.
No. Takeout.
Thank you.
So were there actual CFOs or certificates of occupancy issued to restaurants that shouldn't have been issued because of this Q, or is just they operate as restaurants and then you cite them? I mean,
No. There were several establishments that have certificates of occupancy as restaurants with seating. Why are seats such a big deal? Because it impacts the parking requirement.
I got you, but why did the Building and Safety Department give out CFOs for restaurants when in fact there were these Q conditions and they shouldn't
Well, the
have
Q
been
conditions
issued?
allow some restaurants to come in. since the Q condition, a very popular restaurant called La Luna came in, which is now Quotidian, and that was after. I'm pretty sure that was after the Q condition came in. They don't outlaw restaurants; they just control.
Why would those be allowed and not this one?
Well, because of there are conditions in the queue that limit the amount of restaurants you can have. There has to be a separation of 270 feet. They can only have so much frontage. They can't be 150 feet long. And also parking. The parking is a killer.
So even if they have when they have these Q conditions, then they comply with all that, then they could get the CFO.
Correct.
But if you don't comply with that and there's a Q condition, you can't get the CFO.
I don't quite understand the question.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why were some certificates of occupancy given out for restaurants when I'm being told that these Q conditions prevent restaurants from going in. So I'm
they
trying to
don't
figure
prevent them, but they do limit them.
They limit them.
They wanted a mix of retail and restaurants. They didn't want restaurant row.
Okay.
And there's no way that area could support a restaurant row because there's not enough parking structures.
So okay. And then my previous question was, have we given out certificates of occupancy to restaurants since after those? And we have. So we limit them. But what's that limit? How do we limit that?
If they are less than 1,000 square feet and they have no seating, they have no parking requirements.
Okay. But if they comply with that, then we would.
Then they're fine. They're legal.
Okay.
But what happens is some of these places pretty soon they start sprouting tables and chairs, and that's in violation, and they're certainly not coming up with additional parking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry, but if you will allow me, I really would like to clarify this very simply. Okay, this ordinance was put in place 23 years ago because the community wanted vibrant uses on the street. They did not want a La Cienega restaurant row. That's why there was a restriction on how many restaurants were to be allowed on the street. It has a number of 10. That's sort of what works out according to the frontage, okay? Takeouts do not fall under the same Q condition because takeouts do not require parking, but restaurants do require parking. And that's why there is also a restriction. So if a restaurant cannot provide, if it's over the number of 10, that it can't become a restaurant, but they could apply for a takeout and they could be a takeout. It sounds very difficult and complicated because I think a lot of people are throwing in all kinds of things into this, where I think it's just very simple. If you want to be a takeout, you apply to be a takeout. If you want to be a restaurant, you apply to be a restaurant. You have to provide the parking. If you're not over the 10 restaurants that is allowed on this 2-block street, then you could become a restaurant. Otherwise, you can't.
That was the answer to my question.
Okay.
Yes.
So it has really not that much to do with certificate of occupancies. It's the people who come in that apply for a certificate of occupancy according to what their use is. If they're retail use, they get a certificate of occupancy for retail use. If they're a takeout, they get a takeout certificate of occupancy.
And my question was, have we ever given out any certificates of occupancy for restaurants above 10?
No.
Oh. Whoa, okay.
My answer is no. They can respond a different way. You asked me. Yeah. My question is no. And when this gentleman came in for an application, he signed an affidavit, that indicated that he would not have tables and chairs, which then indicated that it was a restaurant. He signed that affidavit. We did not make him sign it.
Mr. Newman, you're so animated over this. What?
To be clear, when planning staff at the Area Planning Commission, they went through the number of establishments that have restaurant certificates of occupancy. They included a cupcake store that has no tables and chairs, that is not a restaurant. The number that they read was 11. Planning staff just a second ago said that given the square footage, the frontage issue, there's only 8 allowed on the street. Even Ms. Weitzer right now said there's 10 allowed on the street because there's been confusion as to whether or not it curves around. So is there 8? Is there 11? Currently, there's 11 establishments operating with certificates of occupancy that say restaurant. Of those 11, there are a number that have no tables and chairs and that are purely takeout.
So you guys went out there and actually counted them? And
we've counted the fact that we believe that there are probably 10 restaurants out there today that are not just takeout, meaning that if you exclude bakeries, coffee shops, delicatessens, all the things that the ordinance says, we think that there's about 10 restaurants. But we've also counted, and planning staff at Area Planning Commission went through the restaurants or the establishments that have a restaurant designation on their certificate of occupancy, and the number that they read was 11. And in that number, it included a cupcake shop, it included things that weren't real restaurants.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I have to do this. Okay. The issue here really is not whether it's 8 or 10. It's the fact that you can't have more than 10. Okay? He was told at the time that he could not have it because it was more than 10. So the argument here is not whether there's 8, 10, or 11. It's simply you cannot have more than 10, and he could not have another restaurant because it was already 10 restaurants. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So for the planning staff, if we could, this was enlightening to me as learning the details of how people seek relief when they want to seek relief from these items. I've been told often that, and there's a particular change of use or a matter that, why not look at the whole plan? But I think, we try to avoid spot zoning. We try to be consistent in planning. Those are all, nice words planners like to hear. On this one, I do have additional questions that I would like for you to answer for this committee. I'm not sure if Mr. Cedillo has any more, but in looking at this, can you, maybe you have this answers now, but do you have how many other people have sought relief for these types of queue conditions? And in terms with respect to these certificates of occupancies, have they actually been issued to restaurants irrespective of our ordinance and queue conditions when they should not have been issued? And look at the legislative effort. I get the sense, my own sense is that irrespective if somebody does look at this ordinance again or not, it seems like there's some concerns in the local community and from the local council member, and this probably wouldn't pass anyway. But for me, I'd like to make sure we get those questions answered and come back to committee, and then we'll decide where we go. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will hold that item in committee and get back to us.
Councilman, the deadline for this item is January 27th. We meet on January 27th, and the last day for council to act is also January 27th.
We'd waive time and agree to pay for it.
If the last day to act is on the 27th, we'll be back on the 27th.
Yes, but we meet in the afternoon. The council meeting on the 27th would be in the morning, council.
That's the morning, though.
Yes.
Yes,
And that's the last day to act.
The 27th.
Yes,
In
Mr.
council.
Chair, so at this point, if the committee would like to continue this matter to the January 27th meeting in the afternoon, then the applicant must submit in writing an extension to a date certain that will accommodate the committee's request.
Can you submit that now, Mr. Newman, and then we'll be back on the 27th? And then on the 27th, we will hear it in full council soon thereafter, okay? All right, so can you submit that now, Mr. Newman? Does it have to be before we continue, right?
Yes, sir.
Just write something out real quick, and we'll accept it to the clerk. I think that's our final item, so even we can't hold that on the table until, we could hear it the next day in council. What, Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah. Well, I mean, after the 27th. Yeah. I think that's it, correct? We want to get this in writing before. And are there any costs associated with that? For hearing, rehearing, or anything? No?
No, it's just a continuance.
All right.
Public comment was already done. Councilman, we already did public comment.
Public comment already. So we'll just hold off until we get this quickly from them. It just has to be something quick in writing.
Somebody want to know if you could open up public comments. I don't know.
On a continuance, normally no. I will have that. I will open up public comment on the 27th. I'll make that exception.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can we wrap up this, Mr. City Attorney? Can we wrap up this item without the letter in hand to the city clerk?
Well, so long as he agrees to give the letter, I think it's fine. But do you have
let's continue this item to the 27th on the condition that we're going to get this item anyway. We're going to get the note anyway, and then meeting is adjourned. Thank you. So ordered.